Hello again everyone and welcome back to the Underground. Today I thought I would answer a fairly common question and discuss how I have my portable comms and sort of SIGINT kit set up. It's nothing particularly special, but a lot of people have had questions about how to set up something that is usable in the field without having a bunch of tangled wires. As anybody who gets into radio or SIGINT kind of stuff knows, using delicate electronics under field conditions is really difficult sometimes, especially when you're having to deal with consumer grade products which are not exactly the most durable. So what I use works for me and keeps things nice and tidy so that I don't lose anything, while at the same time having a self-contained package that I can just throw into a bag or throw around my neck and go. This makes it really easy to move around and plug in where I need it. So let's get right to it and talk about what has worked well for me. Alright, starting with the sort of chest rig setup here, we've got kind of a lot going on here. First of all, most of these attachments I'm kind of still working on, but this is usually what I'm working with for right now, and it works out pretty well. So the main case here is not really a dedicated chest rig, it's just a gigantic admin pouch, which works really well for holding the tablet computer on the inside. This is the Mega Admin Pouch from Zulu Nylon Gear. It works out really well. It's just the perfect size for holding the tablet computer. I was originally using something from Hill People Gear, but I found that it didn't really work out super well because I didn't want to invest in a smaller size. I wanted to invest in something that has specifically these pouches on the outside, because on the outside pouches I usually like to keep my weather sensor. So this is best served to be tucked into a pouch on the outside of the gear, so that when I'm wearing it and when this is kind of slung around my neck or clipped into a backpack pouch, the weather sensor will still work quite effectively. It's still kind of exposed to the elements, so I can gather weather data as I'm moving along. Also on the outside is a regular strap cutter that I just added a little molly thing to just kind of stick it on the top there. No big deal, just stuff you might want to keep with you. And then on the outside here in this admin pocket, this is where I usually store pens and pencils and stuff. So notepad and a little mini Bluetooth keyboard for the computer on the inside. This is very handy if this is strung up inside a tent or something and you want to be able to kind of mess around with your computer and then use a mouse pad as well. So yeah, just normal pens and pencils, stuff like that in this outside pocket. Here on the bottom of the pouch here, I'm still kind of debating if I want to keep this here or not. Usually I try to keep it here, but inside this small pouch is the 12-volt charger for the tablet computer, for the Panasonic tablet in there. It's got a cigarette lighter adapter that can fit into all my solar panels, so I can recharge this on the go. One of the biggest problems with tablet computers that are Windows tablets, not Android, not iOS, specifically Windows-based systems, the chargers are usually very big or unique in some way, and they're kind of a hassle. So for Windows tablets, Panasonic tablets, or the Microsoft Surface tablets, I try to keep the chargers for those directly with the device itself, because you're not going to be able to find a charger for those kinds of devices very easily if you happen to leave one behind. So I always try to keep it with it. This position here, however, is kind of awkward, so when the tablet's open and you're looking down on it like from a chest rig perspective, this kind of rubs you a little bit the wrong way, and it's not really convenient, but I'm still looking at a solution for that. And then on the bottom side here, I just have a small rain cover for this whole thing, so that if it's raining, I can put the cover over the whole thing. So if it's raining, I can put this cover over the whole thing, and it allows the rainwater to kind of mostly miss the PC on the inside. Just kind of a quick little DIY solution for that. Looking at some of the other things we have on the outside, we also have here this gigantic tube here. This is my primary ADS-B antenna. This is the ADS-B X Boost antenna. It's kind of pricey for what you get. You'd think that it would be a lot more effective considering its approximate $50 price tag. However, this fits perfectly. I didn't want something that would jut out and kind of stick out and be kind of obvious as to what it is here on the outside of this device. Now, of course, when it comes to ADS-B and receiving antennas, you want those antennas to be as far away from your body as possible, and as high up in elevation as you can get it, right? This is not a perfect solution, and I don't like having the antenna mounted here on the front, but it is at least a few inches away from my body here, at least when I'm wearing it on my chest and moving around. And I found that in my area, when I've got this clipped into a rucksack, which is usually what happens when I use this, clipped into the front of a rucksack as like a little mini chest rig, I can still get about 10 to 15 miles range of receiving aircraft with this antenna in this configuration. Obviously, if I take this whole thing off and just kind of hang it in a tree, even at the same level as, maybe 5 or 6 feet off the ground, the reception is infinitely better. It's easily double, and I can usually get about 150 miles of reception with this antenna in this configuration if it's not directly on me. Over here on the other side, we've just got a stylus for the tablet that I usually try to keep it tucked internally so I don't lose it, but it ends up usually just getting tucked there because I use this all the time. Now here on the back is where I mentioned this can be clipped into a rucksack. Now I just have this piece of webbing here, maybe a couple of feet long, just as a simple neck loop. Now I don't often recommend doing that. You obviously want to use these kind of standard clips here to clip into either like a placard system or some kind of dedicated chest rig harness. If you wanted to get like a micro harness of some kind, you can use this as a dedicated chest rig. Obviously, if you're not carrying any kind of mags or anything like that, you're just out for a hike or something, this works really well as a dedicated chest rig. However, most of the time it's going to be clipped into my backpack straps using these two clips here. So it clips right in, assumes the space of kind of a chest rig, and then if I wanted to, if I'm moving really fast, I can clip in these extra side clips here. No big deal, it's just some simple webbing on the top row of MOLLE here, nothing super tactical. I also try to keep a climbing rated carabiner just because these things are also always handy to have, and this is going to be helpful for hanging this thing up either in a tree or in a tent or something when we get to the inside. Also here on the outside, this is kind of a temporary solution until I figure out something better. This is a power extension outlet. So this right here is where I can plug in the power charger here. So if I wanted to, I could string a solar panel on the rucksack that I'm wearing, run the power cable down one shoulder strap, and then plug it in here right at the top, and then secure it with either some kind of gear tie or tape or something. That way I can charge the laptop, the tablet that's in here, as I'm moving, because this thing is going to eat battery power a lot more than you might want it to sometimes, especially if it's running ADSB software. So this actual extension here runs all the way down here to a small hole that I poked in the bottom of the admin pouch right here. So let's go ahead and open it up and take a look at what it looks like on the inside. If we open it up, it's just a standard clamshell arrangement. I have this to where it doesn't open very far. It's not a full 90 degrees because usually I don't need that. I just need a quick peek to take a peek at what aircraft just flew over me or what aircraft was detected, and then I can close it right back up. I don't want this thing to flop way open and then reveal the light source of the tablet, the screen, to just whoever might be looking at me, right? So usually it stays fairly closed, and if I need to open it up, I can always just open it up a little bit more. Now for cable routing, one of the main reasons I decided to go with this setup is because there's a lot of different ways of routing a lot of cables so they don't come undone. One of the worst problems ever with dealing with SDRs and tablets and computers out in field environments is the USB connection. USB Type A connections, they just come undone all the time. And all you need is for your ADSB thing to just jiggle loose a little bit, and it disconnects. So you've got to start all over again, and that's infuriating. So this is what seems to work for me right now. So let's go ahead and pull the tablet out of here. Let's talk about what I've got going on here. So we'll unplug that for now, and then on the other side I have a 90-degree angle USB connector here. Unplug that, set the tablet aside for a moment. This is just a USB splitter. It's just a simple sort of extension that allows me to have two different USB ports. Now, sometimes this plays havoc with what you might want to be doing. But for me, this tablet only has one USB port, and I want to usually do a lot of different things with it. So for right now,
having an ADSB SDR dongle and having a dedicated GPS dongle as well seems to work very, very well. Finding the internal GPS chips for these is not super easy, but in order for me to use GPS to set things like clocks on radios and to set things like my PC clock for things like JS8 call, you need GPS. That's one of the things I see left out a lot of times, is some kind of way of setting your PC time without using the internet. And one way to do that is with GPS. So you can use the GPS on a lot of different radios, like the IC705. You can do it that way, or you can do it with a simple little GPS GLONASS USB device. So that's what I use. Cheap device. You can use it for a lot of different stuff. So that's plugged into one side of the USB splitter. I have another cable here. Is just kind of an extension to go inside one of the pockets here, and that is where my Radar Box ADSB flight stick is plugged in. You can use pretty much any SDR device you want to track aircraft. However, this one I like because for whatever reason the reception is a lot better. I think it's most likely due to the internal filter on this. So this is really just for dump 1090 or RTL 1090 kind of stuff. So your experience may vary. You can, with an RTL SDR, get the SDR itself and then a filter, but it won't fit inside this very well. I've tried it. It comes loose. It's just not a very good way of doing things. So this seems to be a very good solution for me right now. Though I tend to also carry along other different kinds of SDRs. So if I want to do something else, I've always got one or two of these hanging around. So that is tucked inside one of the pockets here on the back side of this. And I have found that if I shove this up here to show you how it's plugged in, a lot of times I like to just tape these closed so that when it's seated in that USB outlet, it doesn't jiggle back and forth as I'm moving along. For whatever reason, this seems to work for now. Just tucking it in like that and then tucking all these cables in and making sure that they don't jiggle loose. See, that's really how all the cables are routed in here. I can plug in this GPS device again, right here. And this is also another USB device so that I can plug in like a thumb drive or something to transfer files to this while it's inside the case. Interestingly enough, you're going to have to do a little trial and error if you want to use a USB splitter with something like ADSB. In theory, you could have two SDR dongles using one for purely ADSB reception and the other for like scanning or doing stuff with like SDR Sharp or SDR Angel or Dragon OS or something like that. However, it's a little wonky, and I've found that I tend to stress this tablet pretty hard. So usually I just run ADSB stuff if I'm on the move. Like I mentioned, other SDR devices can get tucked down in there, and a lot of times I'll also carry a spare 1090 megahertz antenna just in case this one fails. But honestly, I don't really need to carry this anymore because this antenna right here on the outside has been very, very effective. Then back here in the back, I just have a holdover from some stuff I've been working on, just some strips of M9 and M8 NBC paper, chemical detector paper. I've been trying to keep some kind of NBC capability with my weather stations. Maybe I should talk about weather stuff separately. But since this kind of lives with me, and weather and comms and SIGINT stuff kind of all goes hand in hand for me at least, I just kind of leave that there. But it's not, obviously not necessary. It's just really a specific use for me. Here in one of these pockets, I also carry a few different adapters for using different kinds of antennas. If I needed to change something around, I can easily do that right here. Some just really common SMA to BNC kinds of adapters. Then on the tablet itself, if we look here at the back, I put Velcro strips on the back here so that it can actually stick to the Velcro part of the admin pouch here, just as a way of making sure that it doesn't come loose. Now for the battery, I tend to use these larger extended life batteries for these Panasonic laptops. They're not cheap, however, Usually the batteries that come with these Panasonic tablets are garbage when you get them, so, or at least that's been my experience. So I had to buy a new one anyway. And when I do that, I put a piece of Velcro on it, one to make sure it doesn't fall out, but I also buy some of these little cheap smartphone kickstands, and it takes up no space. Just a cheapy little, Chinese grade phone kickstand. It works really, really well with these. And then I also have the same thing, but one of those little rings that you put on the backs of smartphones. I put it here on the barcode reader so that if I wanted to, I could take this out of its case and hang it somewhere so that I could see the screen if I'm like laying in a tent trying to get some rest or something, but I still need to see what aircraft are around. This works really well for that. However, usually this thing doesn't ever come out of its case, and I'll show you why here. So let me put this back together. We can put our power cable back together. Use our little jury-rigged piece of tape there to hold it together, and our USB thing here, just like so. Just like that. Now, usually what I'll do is I'll keep it decently tight like so, and what I've done is I have sewn on the inside of the zipper lip here a very small 1-inch section of paracord. And I looped a piece of paracord through it, tying it to here, to this little webbing loop here, and this little webbing loop here. These two loops here are really used for the paracord to hold this clamshell open and closed. So all I did was create this loop. What that does is that allows me to take this carabiner here and clip it in, and now I can hang this entire thing from a tent or from a tree or something like that, hang it from a central point, and now I can have a desk to work from. So I can set my keyboard here and keep everything out of the mud, out of the rain, and it works out really, really well. I didn't think I would end up using this, but I could hang it, on the wall back in, civilization, back in your house or something like that, and it sits flat up against the wall, and it's a nice little way of keeping an ADS-B receiver running at all times. This is also a great way of storing the device. So usually what I will do is get back from the field or whatever I'm doing, and I will just unzip it and hook this to a hook on the wall and plug in the charger. I use just a normal wall outlet, AC charger here. Plug that in there. It goes to the charging port. So this is a great way to keep this thing running at all times. And the reason you might want to do that and allow for this thing to hang on a wall or a tent or something and have it be open is because this thing gets really, really hot. In the summertime, you might not even be able to use this because it gets so hot. In the wintertime, or really I should say like late spring or early fall, where your ambient temperatures outside are going to be maybe 70 degrees or so, this thing will get up to maybe 135 degrees. Like the screen here will get that hot. So what I like to do is just leave it open, let it hang where it's going to hang, and just kind of air cool that way. Cooling these things is not easy. I've tried all different kinds of options, but they're just not meant for that. They're meant to have air circulating around their kind of, magnesium cases. So this is what's worked out well for me when it comes to average everyday usage for ADS-B and other stuff like that. You can easily do many things with this at the same time. The reason that I like using a dedicated Windows tablet is what I can do is set this up with my ICOM 705 and run JS8 call on this at the exact same time as picking up aircraft via ADS-B. And if I wanted to, also scanning with a dedicated SDR dongle or something else like that. This little PC will handle it. It may be a little stressful for it, but I run JS8 call and plane plotter on this at the same time all the time. It's nearly constantly running both of those at the same time. And because the IC705 has a wireless feature, I don't even need to plug in my IC705. It can use the Wi-Fi chip that's in here to control the 705, which is a really, really cool feature. Otherwise, you'd have to plug it in. And there's mixed results with doing that at the same time as an ADS-B receiver. That is really the overall view of the chest rig setup.
Now obviously things change quite often, especially communications gear. This setup is more of a baseline and really more of a way to use a Windows-based tablet in a field environment without getting things too confusing, right? Without having too many cables and being able to quickly just zip a pouch closed and go. At an absolute minimum, I need to have the ability to track aircraft via ADS-B, the ability to control an HF radio for data modes, and some limited SIGINT/comment collection capability in the form of a simple wideband SDR. If I am planning to set up an electronic listening post, I obviously would take more stuff along, like a dedicated scanner or a better SDR, stuff like that. But this is a good option that has worked for me, and since you all asked about it, I thought it would be helpful to share, especially in today's age where we really have to learn a lot really quickly. So hopefully this helps flatten the learning curve for anyone interested, and I'll also be talking about my specific radio setup as well for those interested in what that looks like. But for now, this is a good start, and very helpful for fighting in the shade.